welcome back to the Eyes Up Life podcast. I am Ben Granis. I am the founder of Eyes Up. Eyes Up is the mission to end distracted driving, promote digital wellness through a variety of means. It started as a 7,000-mile bike ride around the United States while fundraising for a nonprofit called Text Less, Live More, and it's evolved into a whole bunch of other good things, ranging from speaking to interviews to random conversations on the side of the road and everything in between. By now, the Eyes Up Maxis series has wrapped up. I can't believe it. Time really flies by. We've seen and heard 21 interviews that all took place 1 year ago and have been rolling out throughout the course of the year. And this week we have a bonus episode. I had a conversation with Eric Lederer recently following meeting him in the middle of Iowa this July on RAGBRAI. RAGBRAI, if you don't know, week-long bike tour across the state of Iowa going from west to east. This year was the 50th anniversary of this big festival on wheels where there were over 30,000 people riding each day. In this peak of summer heat, all sorts of good food, good people, good music, just great times all around while riding through some of the most beautiful parts of central United States. I met Eric about halfway through RAGBRAI. Our good mutual friend Quinn connected us when he saw that both of us were riding in RAGBRAI. I was just doing RAGBRAI as a one-off bike tour this summer. Eric, on the other hand, was about 6,000 miles into his own journey that started in Southern California, went up into Canada, meandered through the West, and then made his way east to New York City. He'll talk more about that, but Eric was riding to raise awareness for athletes with disabilities for a foundation called Achilles International. He's also fundraising for them and has made some excellent progress so far. He's still working at it. I will leave links to donate to his cause in the podcast notes, as well as a way to get in touch with Eric. He has deleted social media, but he's still available via email and is such a good guy. I'm really glad to have met him and had this additional conversation. We had a pretty lengthy conversation on RAGBRAI on a nice hillside right by where we were camping, overlooking this city of people that had just arrived on bikes. It's quite a sight. The entire event is hard to describe, and I just recommend everyone, whether you like riding bikes or not, to go be part of RAGBRAI. Whether you're a support vehicle or you're riding your bike, it doesn't matter. The experience is fantastic. And the folks in Iowa are just so happy to host this huge volume of people, show them a good time, show them their local foods, their traditions, and just the kindness and happiness that they share. So, without further ado, enjoy this conversation with Eric Lederer, and we'll talk to you at the end. Ciao.
Dan,
Eric,
what's up, man?
what's going on, dude?
Dude, not much.
Oh my God, you don't have any hair
I know. I look
anywhere.
different, man. But dude, how are you?
I'm good. I'm pretty tired, actually. I went for a long hike yesterday in the Adirondacks. I got back late last night, so kind of recovering from that, but can't
Nice.
complain. So
Yeah, where in the Adirondacks were you?
I was in the high peaks. Are you familiar with
Well,
it?
I only know like Lake Placid, really.
Okay, I was southeast of Lake Placid by a bit, but I could see Lake Placid from the
Yeah,
tippy top.
yeah, it's so beautiful out there. Especially, are the colors in bloom right now?
They're past peak. They've gotten a lot of rain, so a lot of the leaves have actually fallen down already. So it wasn't the best, but I mean, still, there's still a decent amount down low.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty there. Anytime.
How's Boston? You're in Boston, right?
Chicago,
Oh,
Chicago.
Chicago. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. That's right.
Oh
That's right.
no. Yeah, it's good, man. School's good. It's been nice to like just have something to keep me busy pretty much, you know. It's like after these trips, I was a little concerned of like, what am I gonna do and all that. And it's just been nice to like have classes and I am trying to figure out my next thing for jobs too. So that's
So
just
yeah, what's your timeline? Because you have a, 2 years or
yeah, the program is 2 years and then like I'm basically there's an internship like a summer break where you are supposed to go intern somewhere. So I'm trying to figure that out now. And it's kind of funny. Like everyone here is probably like 70% of the students are like going after investment banking or like consulting jobs. And I'm not going that path. So it's kind of like it's just to the point of doing these trips and being your own guy. It's kind of been funny to be like just so directly see people being in the herd, and trying to
yeah, I was just
carve
reading
your own
your
way. Yeah.
the article on 06880
Oh,
from
nice, man.
the summer and
Mhm.
your line about jumping off the hamster wheel. I'm like immediately thinking about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like people are, I mean, it's like everyone's got different way of life and what they value and stuff. But I think like for me, it's always been important to, at least like more recently, been important to carve your own path and it's fun, just do my own thing. But might work out, might not, but we'll see. So,
So what are you looking at then for the
well,
summer?
I think I'm interested in the movies and TV and like entertainment industry pretty much. So I'd love to go out to LA. I'm sure you've probably like I'm interested in it more broadly, but I also love like kind of somewhat related to these big adventures. Like I love all those like climbing, hiking movies. Like there's this guy, do you know who Jimmy Chin is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like in that vein, like we're both probably very into that kind of world. And so I feel like being on the business side of something like that would be awesome. I definitely don't think that will be like the first job that I get, but that seems amazing, like to just help those awesome, like inspiring stories get told. And then I like other kind of dramatic stuff too. So
Right. Yeah, well, that seems like a good way to blend what you're working on, but also what you've learned from the last handful of years about yourself.
for sure. Yeah. I mean, it all sounds good and feels like the right thing to be doing, but there's also the reality of like every day, like figuring out like how is this gonna work? But I guess that's part of the fun of it too.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
So you're in an MBA program, right? Or
yeah, yeah. It's a 2-year MBA program. It's like full time. Uh, Everything's pretty good, man. Like I don't know. I was a business major undergrad too, so it's like some of the stuff, the class stuff is a little repetitive, but I feel like I'm here mostly just to like meet people, take some time to keep like exploring what I want to do, and not necessarily for the classes and stuff, but the classes
right.
are fun too. So
Yeah, well, it's got to be a big shift from riding your bike all through the spring and summer.
yeah, man, it's been different, but I meant very much in the honeymoon phase of like being back in domestic life, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, what was the transition like after because you finished in was it September or August?
Yeah,
Late August?
I finished August 30th, I think. So I
Okay.
basically like went home to Florida for like a week and just kind of relaxed like with my parents and stuff. And then the next week school was starting, so I had to move in and I don't have like I'm kind of been in a phase of my life where I have like no stuff. So for better or worse, like it was great when I left. I didn't have anything to be like, oh no, like what am I gonna do with this? cheap stuff I own, but now it's like on the flip side, when I'm moving back and just trying to settle down somewhere, it's like, well, I need to buy all new stuff and like be a normal person again, So I had to do that for about a week. But yeah, I mean now I'm kind of settling into it and it's been good. I'm definitely enjoying it, man. But how about you? How's post Ragbri life been?
It's been good. It's kind of crazy that it's only been 2 months.
Yeah, dude, time flies, man. Time
Well, it
flies.
feels like it's been a lot longer, but
Yeah.
also not.
Dude, I feel you. Time is
Um, it was a good end of the summer. I was in Colorado for about a month after Ragbri.
Mhm.
I stayed with Riley, who you met. You met
Yeah.
Riley, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And stayed with him for like 10 days, and then I was staying at a friend's house in Boulder for 2 weeks or so.
That's,
Um,
weren't you
which
in
was
Idaho?
great. Huh?
Were you in Idaho as well?
Yeah, I was in Idaho after that for just over a week. Yeah. So I did a bike race out there, but flights were cheaper, so I stayed longer
Yeah,
because it was over Labor Day weekend.
that's awesome.
Um, and that was beautiful too. So I feel very grateful to have been all these places after Ragbri.
Yeah,
And then,
man.
and then I was actually in Kansas for 2 weeks in September doing some
Yeah, how'd the
speaking.
speaking go?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was totally different. The first couple days were an adjustment for sure because it was just like jumping into this new routine that was basically there were regional conferences, so there were 8 of them, and every day was basically the same cookie cutter like structure and agenda for the morning. So once I got like the routine down, it was pretty smooth sailing. But it was like, oh, I am speaking in front of hundreds of high schoolers and middle schoolers for an hour every day, and that's
Yeah.
an adjustment.
Dude,
But
that's super cool though, man. I'm sure that was
it was
like,
really fun. And getting to talk to some of the kids afterwards, and just hearing a little bit about their experience was neat because they're living in the dead center of the country and have like way different contexts on everything, which is
yeah.
which is
You
neat.
think you inspired any of them to do a big bike tour?
I don't know about that. It seemed like some of them were convinced to drive safer or get their parents to drive safer. So
Yeah.
that's the overall goal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good
although I
for
did talk to a couple kiddos who were cyclists, which I was kind of surprised about because like I didn't know anyone in high school who was into cycling. I don't know about you, but it's like not a thing in where we were from in Connecticut.
No, sir. No, sir.
So I didn't realize that you probably mentioned this at Ragbri, but your folks moved to Florida.
Yeah, they're in St. Petersburg. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's always been kind of nice to go down there and just to hang out when
How
it's
long ago did they move?
yeah, a few years ago, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So especially now I'm in Chicago, it's great to like have somewhere to
Yeah, especially once well, I mean, it's getting colder now, but as it
yeah,
continues
it's
to get colder.
the weather here sucks, man. It's it's a
Well, it's
great
probably
city.
nice now, right?
It's fine now, but it like basically when it rains here, it's just like cold, consistent rain all day. It's not like in Florida, they'll get rain, but it'll be for like an hour or two and that goes away.
Right.
Here, it's just like you get this torrential downpour and it just like doesn't stop. And it's really annoying. Yeah, the weather here is not good, but the city itself is great. I love it. I am very happy so far. So, but
Have you
yeah,
made some friends with the program or in the program?
yeah, it's great. I mean, they do a really good job of like just facilitating all these relationships, just like it's everyone's it's kind of like going to college again. It's like undergrad, where everyone is just kind of like eager to meet people. And yeah, I mean, people are pretty open-minded too. And genuinely, some people have been pretty interested. It's also kind of weird about like, how do you talk about, doing something like what we've done? Like, it's like, you don't want to be I try not to talk about it that much, honestly. I try to just like have it be an interesting thing that like if it comes up, it comes up. But I'm definitely not like,
Hey,
hi,
look at
my name's
me.
Eric, and I just rode my bike 7,000 miles across America because like nobody likes. It's just like I don't want to be that guy, you know.
Well,
Um,
has it come up naturally a few
it ha
times?
it has, you know, but like, but it's kind of like we'll just be like, what did you do over the summer? Like, it was kind of interesting. Like, there's this like business school is for a lot of people just like time off that they haven't taken before. A lot of people that like were in the corporate world or whatever. And it's just a time kind of time to reset. And so they do a lot. There's a lot of like organized travel. One of the big ones happens like big trips is like over the summer. And so I couldn't do that. So like a lot of people had met each other through that.
Mm.
But I got there and it's like I didn't know anyone. I mean, I didn't know that many people. And like, yeah, so people would ask, like, did you go on this trip over the summer? I'd be like, no. And sometimes they'll be like, why not? Well, I'm like, well, I was doing this big bike trip. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, I'm sure you've probably experienced a similar thing where it's like it comes up and it's awesome when it comes up, but you don't want to be like annoying about it.
Yeah, I'll never lead in with it. It
Yeah.
just that is not my
Yeah,
personality and it's not
for sure.
yours.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's more, I would say like it's more about how you do what you do than what it is you're actually doing, you know. It's just
yeah, totally. So, yeah, wait. So when did you think of the idea to do this bike trip? Because I know you, and for the last several years, you've been doing some really awesome traveling generally. So
yeah.
I guess talk about that first and then why you pivoted to doing this.
Okay, so I guess my you were asking like my background with traveling. I was kind of thinking like structuring my thoughts about the lead up to the trip is really kind of twofold. Like there was like an endurance athletics part of it and then a traveling part of it. And bike tours are like a really great blend of those two things. And on the endurance sports side, like I got involved doing, I had no background whatsoever. Like I grew up playing football, just very anaerobic, and I just like never ran or anything. Then I did sign up for a half marathon in 2017 when I like just graduated college. And it was just like this seems like I honestly in hindsight like don't even know what compelled me to do that. I just did it. And it was super slow, like I don't even know what the pace was. It was horrible. It was at least like everything's relative, but I think I ran in like 2 hours and 11 minutes or something. So it was for me, it was really slow. You know, I've gotten faster, but from that, I just kind of caught the bug. Like I started volunteering with this organization called Achilles International, which helps athletes with disabilities. So that was like a natural way to continue this the progress from this half marathon I did, and then I put my name in on the wait list to be a charity runner for that organization, not thinking anything of it. And then of course, like I got called off the wait list, so I raised like a couple grand to go run the New York Marathon in 2018. Um, I bet that was also extremely slow. I was like 4 hours 46 minutes for that. Um, and
But you
then
did it.
but I did it, right?
And that's a huge thing to do.
Yeah, and then I was like, yeah, like I could do a marathon, I could do anything. So naturally, I guess my mindset for these things is just like just in general, for whatever reason, it's just like go big or go home. And I was like, all right, now I'm gonna do an Ironman. Just because I had heard like some guy basically. Yeah, so I signed up to do this Ironman, heard a guy in my office talking like saying that he knew someone that did Ironmans and they were crazy and like ate a bunch of ice, like ate ice cream for breakfast and kind of stuff just to like fuel themselves. And I was like, well, just the way these things work, like just little like nudges where you hear something like that and it just somehow resonates. So I was like, I'm gonna do an Ironman. And so I signed up for Lake Placid in 2019, like right after doing the marathon in November of 2018. And I was working in banking and like had a really just like busy schedule and didn't give the training the kind of like respect that it needed and like sacrifice that it needed. I probably trained at most like 10 or 12 hours in 1 week, which just like for some people, I don't know, would be okay, but like I just genetically am really slow and not good at endurance sports, so I need to train a lot. And I totally just screwed that up. Like I didn't finish. I got what's called hyponatremia, which is like when you drink too much water, you basically like flood your blood cells and you can die that way. And I like was 5 minutes too slow on the bike course cut off and like basically collapsed at the end. And like they took me to the medical tent and like took my a blood sample and told me like, yeah, you need to eat only salt or like do not have water for the next day, only eat salt, just drink salty stuff. And eventually I recovered, but that had kind of planted this seed of like, all right, I gotta like I'm not like I just maybe I have whether it's ego or whatever is like I'm not gonna just not finish this. Like I need to come back and do this. So I did that I guess like a year and a half, a year and some change ago now, like in 2022. I came back to Lake Placid and I finished. So that's kind of like the endurance sports piece of it. I like triathlon. I was like, got the bug. I was like, I just want to keep going and I'm not very good at biking yet. Like, I want to see what's there. So that's just my endurance sports kind of background. And then for the traveling part of it, which is another piece, like I grew up not being outdoorsy whatsoever. My family was not into it or anything. Like, but my grandma was really into traveling. Like she went to every continent and would always she was just like a really great, wise person. And she'd always be like, it was one of the more like joyous things that she did in her life. And she'd always kind of like tell her grandkids about it. And like that just resonated, I think, with all of us, at least with me, definitely. And I was like fortunate enough to study abroad when I was in college. So like I went to Europe a couple times and basically had like the time of my life traveling. Um, I also like there's some personal like on a more personal side, like I've I've never really like I think Americans we have a pretty many Americans have a somewhat distorted perception of travel being something that is for rich people, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's like, well, like you travel, therefore you must be rich, or like you're privileged or whatever. And I totally recognize like just the gift that it is to be able to go do a long trip and go see the world and stuff. But at the same time, like not all travel has to be this like totally consumer centric view or perspective of like you need to go to like the most fancy schmancy places and be in resorts and everything. Like that is actually something that's never really appealed to me. I've always liked to just get off the beaten path and go to crazy places, you know, keep it as cheap as I can. And um yeah, so I basically, I kind of budget traveled my whole life. Like when I was in in Europe. Like I'd stay in hostels and stuff, and eat ramen, all that kind of stuff. And so that, yeah, basically then I started after graduation. I like went into investment banking, which was super busy. I don't regret it at all. I think some people like banking gets a bad rap a lot of the time for obvious reasons, but a good thing about it is that it pays really well. So if you can basically just kind of like trade some time for money, basically, like and another thing was like I was super fortunate that my parents paid for my school, my undergrad. So I was basically like I felt like so lucky to just have this job where I was making a lot of money. It was a good experience too, but like I had this travel bug and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna save up, like ride the 2 years out, enjoy it, and then hit the road. And I booked a one-way flight to Russia in this would have been at the end of 2019. Like, and this lines up with the timeline of the trying the Ironman. It was like, I'm gonna do this Ironman, I'm gonna like get promoted, and I'm gonna take off and do this one-way flight to Russia and then travel from there, basically. But yeah, basically then I took off. I didn't finish the Ironman as I mentioned. But I booked this flight to Russia and I had basically around a year of just like unfettered exploration, but like by conventional means, like planes, trains, and automobiles. And it was amazing. I mean, it was like truly a journey of a lifetime. And just I don't know, I think just really ingrained in me that like go do the crazy thing, like go like there's no I mean there's you shouldn't be afraid to just like go off and do crazy stuff if it's really what you feel like is meant for you to do in the moment. Like because I came back from that trip and I think a lot of people perception would be like, geez, that's so risky. Like you had a good job. Like you just gonna throw that all away. And then when I got back, it was like that actually ended up playing really well because I just felt like life is short and you got to enjoy it while you can. Like you never know. Like if something happened tomorrow or today, like it's just a YOLO thing. Like how would you be happy that you did this trip? I mean, all things considered, like didn't have a very serious girlfriend at the time. It was too early to like make sacrifices for any kind of relationship I would have been in. It was just like time is, you just got to enjoy your youth and go for it. And like it was amazing. And so I got back and that I think really helped me even from a career standpoint of like you're not just ever once you do one of these big trips, like you're never, at least like at that age, it felt like you're not just the same person. You're never gonna just be another sheet of paper or perceive yourself that as like a sheet of paper in a big stack. It's like that you're a little different, which I think is great. I think it's great to have that kind of confidence that like you can go do something completely insane and have a like totally like normal, successful, like quote unquote corporate life. And in some aspects, you might even have more success because of the risk that you took. You know, I think in one of the realizations I had from that trip was like it's actually a risk in itself to not take a big risk, right? Like if you just don't step off the path, assuming you have a desire to, if you just have this latent desire that you never pursue, I think if that just accumulates over many years, you can, there's definitely the possibility that you wake up in your mid 40s or at whatever age, and it's like, well, I don't really know like who I am or like what I've been doing for the last 20 years, something like that. So that I think on the kind of travel slash work side, aside from the endurance sports, was like definitely laying the foundation for this trip. And then I think really basically after that trip, I moved to Austin and I took a job, had an amazing time for a couple years. And then that had kind of run its course and I was ready to hit the road again. And I had applied to
Was that
business.
also in the banking world, like a similar, like kind
It
of
was a
picking up where you
finance
left off,
job.
or
It
okay,
was a finance job for a legal tech company. And it was a great experience. I mean, have you been to Austin?
no,
Yeah, it's amazing. I think you'd love it. It's like just very outdoorsy, like progressive place. People are just generally very happy there, I think. Not everyone, but I was, and a
cool.
lot of people, yeah, a lot of people I knew. I mean, it tends to be a little bit of a bubble. Like it's just this super happy place, I thought. And I loved it. Had an amazing time there, but I think it was like thought about this a lot while like maybe toward the end of there is like, do you have this idea of like, I could just be here and be happy here forever, probably. But it's like, do you want to choose like kind of a happy life, or do you want to pursue something that you feel is like, or are you going to be drawn to something that you feel is like more meaningful? I like that's something that I think I have definitely battled and just struggled with is like I'd be a lot happier if I just like didn't didn't complicate things with doing crazy trips and stuff. Um so but I ultimately decided like, you know what, I'm really happy here, but I've got this itch that I need to scratch as far as traveling and this endurance sports stuff. So again, like I can't really directly pinpoint how the bike trip started, but I do remember my earliest memory of hearing about bike tours was my roommate when I was living in New York. This guy, Andy, he was like applying to law school and he was like, I'm maybe gonna ride my bike across the country before law school as like part of Backroads. You familiar with
Hmm.
Backroads? Yeah, he was like applying to be a leader on a backroads trip and I knew nothing of it. And it was one of those things, just like that guy like sitting in the office talking about those Iron Man people. It was like kind of just a throwaway thing that like somehow fate had it that it just stuck in my mind. It was like, I gotta do this. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing like
And
I
also probably just reminding you that you can do something that's so atypical.
yeah, no, 100%. And like I had already had this confidence of like coming back and kind of reinserting myself into the corporate world after that extended time off before. So I was like, you know what? Like, I gotta go for it again. Like, I gotta do it. I was applying to business school. I was basically on the wait list at all these schools I'd applied to. Well, three of these schools. I was like, we'll see what happens with the wait list, but I gotta do this. Like, I put the 2 years in again. Like felt like I had a good career experience. Like got what I wanted from work, and it was ready to go. Like
Hmm.
basically, so I quit my job, and then a couple weeks later, I think I ended up getting into school, which was like a big sigh of relief because it was like, all right, now I have an official date that I have to like be back, pretty much like be back uh for the start of school, and I can work backwards from there and plan this trip. And so with that in mind, I knew I had like about 5 months and some change to like play around with, and like to the point of just like go big or go home. I was like initially saw the Trans Am route through ACA, which is the Adventure Cycling Association for maybe any listeners that don't know. But yeah, they've got this great Trans Am route. It's typical Trans-American bike route, probably the most well-trodden route. And I initially thought like, okay, I'll do that. But then I realized like that I had a couple more months. That takes usually about 3 months, and I had five. So it's like, let's just get creative and start patching. Like, what tour of America is complete without seeing the Pacific and like really squeezing the most that you can out of like the West? So I just started patching their routes together pretty much and ordering like a bunch. They have paper maps that are really helpful. Ordered a bunch of those. And from there, I got on my, I'm kind of a big Excel junkie with my old jobs and stuff. So I just put everything, this big plan into Excel of like, this is how I'm going to do it. And planned it all out. And then, yeah, I mean, I figured like the Trans Am ends in DC. So I first thought I'd end there. But then I was thinking more as like, well, I have a bunch of friends and family in New York. So, and there's inevitably going to be some pretty shitty times out on the road when you're just like, I don't want to, like, this is just brutal. Like, I'm in physical pain, mental pain, everything. And I always felt like if I had something to look forward to in New York at the end to see this, like, have this big gathering of family and friends, like, that would be really helpful for those kind of dark moments. And so I figured like there was this bar called the Fish Market that my buddy had told me about. I'd never even been there. But like my friends and I we're big partiers. Like they're big like fans of dive bars, this kind of thing. And this place just has this reputation, this like cult-like reputation of like being an amazing place to like go have a big party. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to end this trip at this bar called the Fish Market in New York. And hopefully like all my friends will be there, maybe some family will be there. And I'm gonna call the ride Operation Fish Market for that reason. And yeah, I mean that was kind of the whole plan. I was ready to go. I had no idea if that was actually gonna work, if I had like bitten off more than I could chew as I had done with that Iron Man. But I just had a plan and was like, we'll see if I can get to the fish market 5 months later. And it all worked out, man. I mean, everything in between, like Ragbri I had planned, it like all of it, it just somehow worked out. I mean, of course, there were kind of twists and turns along the way, but I mean, generally speaking, like to think, I just can't even believe it worked out as well as it did. Like 5 months. I mean, think about how much can happen in 5 months that can
And how
just
much can go wrong?
exactly, and how much did go wrong and it still worked out. um I mean, like seriously, like to have no one, like no extenuating circumstance for that whole time to like take me directly off of that path, like, and it wasn't, I didn't follow like to a T the plan I had made beforehand. I changed it up actually quite a bit, but broadly speaking it was a similar, with the same like big milestones followed, like Bragg being one of them. And it worked, man. And it was magic. It was another ride of journey of a lifetime for sure. That and the trip I'd taken previously are two experiences that they're very different. It's hard for me to say what's one was better or worse. Very different, but I think back on I just turned 29 and I'm thinking back on my 20s and everything. I mean, I've basically been fortunate enough to spend like half of my 20s working and doing career stuff and half of it just exploring, man, being a student and traveling the world and doing this crazy stuff. And I feel like the life that I want to have in my 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond, if I'm lucky, it's like to just have this foundation of adventure that I've had already. It's like it's
Pretty
been a dream.
special.
It's been a dream, man. I'm so fortunate to have been able to do this stuff. And if not able to travel for one more day of my life or do anything that's that exotic, like I'm so at peace with that just because of like the opportunities I've had these last handful of years. So
And opportunities that you've made for yourself, just like you
yeah,
going
I mean
out of
it's
your way and taking those leaps.
yeah, I think it's definitely a combination, right? It's like you gotta of course, I mean 99.9% of people, I don't think we're given circumstances where you could even dream of doing something like this. But of course, there's the small bit of like, oh, well, you got to have the courage to go do this fun bike trip, you know? And it's like, I mean, and it is mostly fun. Like, I think, like, of course, there's some crappy times, but
But overall, you're still on a
yeah,
bike.
yeah, it's not like you're coal mining every day, you know? You're riding a bike.
True.
Yeah, so that was kind of, I mean, that was kind of like the lead up to the trip. And yeah, I mean, the trip itself is like a whole nother can of worms, you know?
Well, yeah, so how much biking experience did you have? I mean, obviously you were doing the triathlon thing, but how much longer distance bike riding had you done before setting out earlier this year?
So I had done basically every bit of biking I had done in my life. Well, yeah, like primarily outside of childhood memories was related to triathlon training. It was just like I want to do an Ironman and I have to bike to do that. It was biking was not a part of my life besides that. And so I did like a two night kind of like trial test run.
Hmm.
I was in Austin, which was amazing. Like there's some nice state parks outside of Austin. So that was good. I completely screwed up the second day of that, where I got stranded with no food. You realize once you're about like 10 miles outside of Austin that Texas is in certain places like a barren wasteland of like there's no resources anywhere. Like you're in just like ghost town after ghost town with no supplies. And so I ran out of food and water the second day I tried doing this, and luckily like found some kind of trail angels that were also doing a bike tour. I have no idea who they were. They were just, it was my first experience of like trail angels on a bike. And they like helped me out and gave me a little bit of food and just kind of nursed me back to life. And like that was definitely an awakening. But I really had no prior experience with any of this stuff. Like but I do have, I don't know, I just like everyone's got just their tendencies in life. And like mine, I think, at least for these last like 5 or so years, has been to just be like, maybe it's from a place of ego or whatever, but it's like if I'm doing something, like I'm going all the way in on it, and I'm not like I would have struggled to just do like a week-long bike tour, you know, like I just like it's like no, like I'm pretty, it's almost like an addict's behavior. Like I've never had addiction problems, but like it's I don't know. I was just like, you only live once, and like I don't know. My dad's also an entrepreneur, so like he very much. I mean, he's we had a lot of ups and downs, and but he's always been a pretty ambitious guy, and it's just like you know what, like you get one try at life. Just don't do it small, you know, like go for it. Whatever it is, if you're
Commit
gonna
to
go,
it, yeah.
yeah, if you're gonna go travel by conventional means, like go travel, go to every freaking corner of the universe that you can. And if you're gonna do a bike tour like in America, like go see like the highlights, go see everything, go do everything you can because you get one shot at this, right? So I just went for it knowing like, you know, I'd read enough blogs online to see like there's a bunch of old guys and gals that have done this, and if they can do it, I can do it. And yeah, I mean, that was my background, and I think the Ironman training helped a lot. Like it's such a kind of corny saying that they have. The slogan is like anything is possible for Ironman. And it is a bit cringe, but at the same time, there's a lot of truth to that. I think if I could like recommend, it's again like recognizing the privilege that I've had to even be able to do an Ironman. It's so uh time and money intensive. Like the barrier to entry is so high to do a triathlon, let alone like a big Ironman. But I do think if you can afford it and you have the resources to do it, it's one of the best ways to endow yourself with that mentality of like what you thought was possible is complete like it will open mental pathways that are just like really mind-blowing, honestly. It's like, and I think that applies not to just to Ironman, but to other ultra distance stuff too. It's just, of course, it's a crazy, grueling physical thing, but it's the mental side that is just like, I, I mean, like, it just makes you so much more open to crazy ideas and crazy people. It's like, and just breaking conventional wisdom, like, because I just think it just makes it easier to see like, okay, what I think, what another person is doing with their body or with their life, if they are saying like verbally, if it's what they're saying sounds crazy to me, it's a lot easier to just kind of question my own intuition and thinking like, well, maybe this person's onto something. Like, you know,
Hmm.
but that's kind of a bit of a diversion from talking about bikes and I guess like my preparation for this, but it all just goes back to like go big or go home. And the bigger the thing that you try to tackle is, like, the more you kind of just have to believe in it and it reinforces that mentality.
Well, and you, speaking of making the thing bigger, you made it, I mean, you were working for a good cause while riding, which it was, is that an extension of the marathon fundraising? Or
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
that.
So that was related. So like when I started doing when I did the ch was a charity runner, basically I got involved through this organization called Achilles that I had mentioned, like helps athletes with disabilities. And I figured like I'm doing this big trip and it's kind of it's just a great excuse. Like why the hell not? Like why? I mean, it's one of the most unique things that I'll ever do in my life. Like it's such a good opportunity. Like there's no reason not to pay it forward a little. And I was thinking like, I've been fortunate enough to not have been like had personal experiences with cancer or family members dying of other diseases and stuff. Like, and of course that inevitably will be part of my life. But when I think about like successful fundraisers, for me, it's just like it's got to be personal. Like first and foremost, it's got to be appeal to like my lived experiences. And just thinking about this trip and the origins of it, it was like, well, if I didn't go to that, early like group run, they have group runs with
Hmm.
disabled athletes. And like if I didn't do that back in 2018, there's no like it just I was just kind of tying all these events together. And it was like, if that didn't happen, if I didn't do the New York Marathon, then I probably wouldn't have done that Ironman, and then I wouldn't have done any of this stuff. So I was like, I haven't been super involved with this organization, but if I'm thinking back of like my origins with all of this, Achilles is like kind of a foundational piece of it all. And so I figured like do fundraiser. Of course, I kind of naively set the goal at 50 grand, which ironically is the same goal that you had for Eyes Up. And like, yeah, I mean, it was good. I think the fundraiser was an interesting, I'm glad I did it and have been doing it. Like, I'm right now kind of just in a holding period with it where I finished the trip and I was just like, I need to
You
Yeah,
starting school and moving
yeah,
and
I've been
buying
the last
furniture.
month or so just been like, I need to just relax a little and like just revisit at the right time.
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? Like, yeah, I mean, I figured like 50 grand, why not? Go like just go for it. And of course, it's a lot harder than I had anticipated, but I don't have any regrets about doing that because it was like, I mean, I believe in like action and doing stuff and act like hyperactivity to a fault. It's like even if if you try something and you don't raise 50 grand, at least immediately, it's like, well, at least you tried. If I didn't do any of it, I mean, I guess maybe there would have been other benefits or something, but it's like, why not try? So, I mean,
Totally.
right now we're at like a little over 13 grand, which is still a ton of money.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Um, yeah, and like I don't know, I guess it was very as you can relate, this stuff is very hard, and I'm very impressed by what everything you've done. I mean, it's that was one of the first things when I met you at Ragbri. I was like, dude, like how am I gonna raise all this money? How like there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this like by the time my trip ends. And I think you just like really helped ease my nerves about that a little bit when we talked. So
Well, yeah,
thank
here I am, 14 months after officially
yeah,
finishing the
right.
trip and
I mean,
still working on it. So,
yeah, well, no, I mean, I'm seriously so impressed, and also shout out to Quinn for connecting us. But
yeah, well, I
um,
meant to mention in the beginning, I saw Quinn last week at a
oh
wedding in
really?
Utah. Yeah, I totally meant to mention that I
Oh,
was going to be chatting with you, but
that's
it's a
awesome, man.
busy time.
No, no, that's great. Yeah, but no, like that was when I first met you. I was like just amazed. I mean, how small the world is. Like, I think we talked about Sir Ragbri. It was like, what are the odds that two guys of like the same age from like neighboring towns did this kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much direct parallels.
Yeah,
And then we
insane.
meet in the middle of Iowa,
Yeah, yeah,
which I want to talk about that as well. Like so Ragbri, the week long tour across Iowa with 40,000 people or however many people it was. What was that like going from, riding pretty much solo for most of the time to that?
yeah. I think Ragbri was definitely one of the highlights of my trip. I mean, where do I even start? It's like I had planned this thing when I first started back in March or April when I was starting to do my Excel spreadsheeting of where do I want to get, like what's going to be like the greatest hits of where I'm going to be able to go on this tour. And it was like the Pacific Coast, like the national parks out west. And then once you got east of kind of like the Badlands, it's like, well, there's a big stretch of prairie pretty much starting in the Badlands and going east basically until I hit Chicago, where I also have a bunch of family and friends. So I was looking forward to that. And I was like, I gotta have something to look forward to. And anyone that's like planned a big bike tour like this, I think, has heard about Ragbri most likely. It's just something that is it's just part of this world, right?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet. I'm like, this kind of might work perfectly based on the dates if it everything goes according to plan. And so I plan like from the beginning, like I'll try to do Ragbri. If it doesn't work, if I have some kind of diversion or want to go somewhere else, like I'll do, I won't be heartbroken. But just week by week, as the miles kind of piled up, it was like more and more within reach. And I ended up arriving in Sioux City like 2 or 3 days before the start of Ragbri, which was perfect
Wow.
because it was like, and that was like totally. I mean, I didn't have to do like any centuries before really to get there. It was just like, I mean, I did do a couple centuries, but not out of like, oh, I need to get to
Right. You
Ragbri.
weren't sprinting in a
Yeah,
rush to
no, it
get
was
there.
just like natural pace kind of got me there 2 or 3 days before. And so I'm there and it was just like I was so happy to be there. And it was like, I mean, Ragbri, I think it's like truly one of the best spectacles of humanity that there is in the whole world. Like it's not the easiest thing. This year was really hot. Um,
And a lot of miles
a
too.
lot of miles. It's freaking hot, but it's also a party. It's like it's everything, you know? It's like it's a party, it's hard, it's people there's definitely skews probably like older white dad demographic, but there's also all kind like I was kind of surprised by how diverse it was, the different bikes you see like people on rollerblades, on those big like unicycles, like just what an experience. I mean, I think I did a like from the standpoint of going from being alone for all that time to then going right into this giant festival with like and meeting I mean and then meeting you and your buddies like was just like and another insane like just this crazy surprise that like added another layer to it. So it was
And that
like,
wasn't even in the beginning. That was like halfway through the week.
yeah, I don't even remember like what the like I don't how that happened. I guess Quinn must have been.
Quinn, I think, had just seen on Instagram that, or like knew that we were both doing it and was like, here we go, connection time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
Classic Quinn.
my favorite, honestly, probably my favorite part, one of my favorite memories of Ragbri was when we first met, when we were sitting in that spot
On the hill.
above. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
just like getting to see everything going on
yeah,
below the
yeah.
city operating.
Oh my goodness, man. That was yeah, because I was just like still at that point trying to meet people like in a festival like that. It's like if you go alone, it's like you're gonna meet random people, but it's always kind of you socially you're kind of like trying to figure out like, all right, like what are the groups of people that I know here, you know?
Did
Um,
you know anyone going into it that
no,
was
I didn't.
so you
And
just showed up and was like, all right, here we
yeah,
go.
well, I mean, you do a solo trip like this, and inevitably you get comfortable meeting random people.
Right.
So it was all going to be super spontaneous. And I also think like the trip that I had done helped with this like a couple years ago, where it was like traveling alone, you just have to meet random people. I think we just have an innate need, at least I do, and people in general do, I think, have like an innate need for social interaction. And so if you go by yourself somewhere, like that's only going to last so long. Eventually, you're going to have to like talk to people, otherwise, you just go crazy. So, so that was very easy on Ragbri, and like I met actually a big group of guys. The first night at like one of those concerts they had, I was just standing there, and some guy like from Wisconsin named Mitch, he just seemed like a fun guy, and we were hanging out and chatting. Next thing you know, like two other dudes are hanging out with us. Next thing you know, it's like just 10 of us or something. Like, and then we were all like kind of similar demographics, similar age. We were partying together all week. Like, but it wasn't like I need to hang out with these people at all times. It was just like I'm in a group text with these guys. I'll see them like I don't know, every day, every other day, probably, and similar deal with like your group of buddies. So it's just cool to like have a couple different random groups of people there. You'd like I'd be riding alone at some points, and I'd just see like your buddies or them be like, "Yo, what
Yeah,
up?"
right.
You
Like
know?
what? Like of course you're gonna see each other, but in a sea of thousands of cyclists, like it felt at least to me like I saw people I knew more frequently than I should have given the odds.
For sure. And like it is kind of crazy by the end of the week. Like you have people that you just start seeing again and again. It's like, oh, like this guy or this gal. I also thought that I think the Air Force part of it is one of the coolest things. Like this idea of like there's gonna be like 80 of these Air Force people there to like support everyone that gets a flat tire. It's like such a cool like microcosm of the world. It's like
Hmm.
you know that these Air Force guys and some gals like have your back, you know, it's like it's just this little world that is like so I don't know. I guess there are a lot of festivals like that. Well, there's nothing like Ragbri, but just from the standpoint of like the structure of the festival and everything, it's amazing. And to the small world part of it, like, did I tell you about I may have mentioned this guy like basically when I got on warm showers when I started planning this because it it's just similar to Ragbri, it's something you just hear of when you're planning this stuff. And anyway, I never thought my parents in a million years would want to host anyone on warm showers. And then sure enough, some I get a message. I was moving, so I put my address as my parents' address. And
Hmm.
so I got a request from this guy being like, I'm on a tour in Florida. Can I stay with you? Like I'm going through St. Petersburg where my parents live. It's like, sorry, like this is actually my parents' address, but like I'll ask and see if they'll host you. And I asked, and like to my surprise, my mom was down for it. And so this guy, and the other thing was like his background was like he went to Indiana, like he lived in Chicago. His kids went to Indiana, which is where I went to college.
Uh-huh.
I told my parents, I was like, can you help this guy out? Like he seems like a normal, nice guy, whatever. So he stayed with them. And then I thought, apparently it went well and everything, like nice guy. And then that was that. I didn't think of it for the next like 6 months. And then I'm riding on Ragbri and I see a guy wearing this like Cutters shirt, which is just like a
Mm.
reference to the Little 500 at Indiana, which is like a big bike race there. And anyway, so it's just this guy like I'm sure you had a million of these conversations that week. It's just someone riding next to you that's like, "Hey, first Ragbri, like where are you from? Like you ever done a bike tour before? That kind of stuff." So I just see this guy in this basically Indiana shirt. We're talking. He's like starts just going through things. He's like, yeah, like I got a couple kids that went to Indiana. I like did this bike tour in Florida in February. And as he's listing more of this stuff, the dots are connecting. I'm like, dude, like is your name Bob? And
No
he's like,
way.
yeah, man. It's like, dude, you stayed with my parents in Florida. And he did. It was so that was the guy,
That's unreal.
right? Yeah, just wild. Do you remember also there's a guy, he's pretty recognizable. He would ride in a hockey helmet. There was an old guy riding on Ragbri in a hockey helmet.
Okay.
He was you couldn't miss him. If you saw him, you'd know.
Did he have a
Anyway,
unique bike or was it kind of like a
he was
normal?
really old and kind of senile, honestly.
Mm.
But like
Not jumping out of me, but
he wore this hockey helmet for his bike, for his
yeah.
setup. And anyway, we were like the other group of guys I was with, like they were talking, we were just kind of having a laugh. This guy's like wearing a hockey helmet, like good for him. Anyway, I get back from this trip and there's this guy who I met before I did any of this. Like when I was planning, I basically somehow got connected to a guy who did the Trans Am with his dad who had Alzheimer's, and he wrote a book about it. And so I bought the book, and it's called like 300 Conversations Across America. The guy's name's Kari Loya. And so I'm reading this book after my trip is over. And basically, the point of the book is it's just like little snapshots, quotes of conversations that he had. It's like kind of a coffee table
Mm-hmm.
picture book, but also like there's the story of their trip. And one of the stories that he has is this, and he did this trip in 2018, I want to say. And one of the stories that he has, one of the pictures, is this guy in the hockey helmet.
No
I'm just
way.
like, dude, I met this guy on Ragbri.
Wow.
So it's just like the bike touring world is a very small world, even though it covers a lot of ground and you can do it anywhere. But yeah, Ragbri was just kind of part and parcel of that. Just what an experience, man.
So Ragbri was the last week of July, and then you had about a month of riding after that. What was the
Yeah.
transition out of Ragbri to the end of your long trip?
Well, so I made it to Chicago. I took a couple days off in Chicago. I was sick as a dog, which definitely happened because of Ragbri.
Yeah,
Um,
not
I
surprising.
was really sick in Chicago. Took a few days off. Hung out with friends here. That was amazing. And then the stretch between Chicago and New York was like it was, and I had thought it would be this way going into it. It was like this is the time where the end is in sight and you just send it. Like get to New York, like just go for it. I mean, not necessarily in a mileage standpoint, but just in like you can you can taste the end and you gotta it just changes your mentality about it, right?
Yep.
But I also like because of the flexibility I had in my planning, like I did have you ever done the gap in CNO? Or you know about it?
I definitely know about it. I don't remember. I don't think I wrote any of it.
Yeah, so Appalachia, but you did go through Appalachia, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I texted you about this. Like I think no matter how you do it, if you're on a bike tour across America and you need to go through the Appalachians, like that is going to be the hardest part of the trip. Like that, no matter what region or part of it you're in, I think that is combination of the steepest hills and like some of the most poverty too. So it's like you get this like, and it is very beautiful, but at least to me, like there's nothing that compares to the mountain passes out west. So like the beauty is nice, but it's not
It's
I don't
different.
think it compares. I really don't. Like I think out west is like just but that maybe that's just personal preference. But like so I kind of lucked out in doing the gap in CNO because what it is like this towpath, right? That like essentially shields you from what you get off of that towpath for a few like a mile in any direction and you're immediately climbing and not just like casual climbing, like we're talking like 10 to 20% climbs like immediately. And so to not have to do that for 5 days and like to cut through most of there was definitely a couple days where it was really crappy.
You can't totally avoid it.
Yeah, exactly. But like I felt like I almost wussied out in a sense. It was like I had it handed
I
to me
don't
on a
think so.
silver platter. Yeah. But like I also I didn't feel guilty about that. I mean, I wouldn't have felt guilty about that anyway, but I did think that like the beginning of the trip was so grueling that I think I had kind of like earned that part of it like because I went northbound on the PCH at West.
So did you start in San Diego?
I started in LA.
Okay.
I started again like to the concept of like bookending it with friends and family. Like I had my brother's in LA, my best friend is in LA.
Right.
So like it was just like I gotta have something like there's something about these trips where it's like you do these trips alone, but it gives you so much more appreciation of the family and friends that you have in your domestic life. Like it just amplifies that so much. So I started out there and I knew like going north, I knew there was going to be headwinds every day for the first month of the trip pretty much. And they were as bad as advertised, like maybe worse in some places. I had no idea how miserable that was going to be. Um, like easily some of the worst parts of the trip, I'd say, were that like it's not just like a headwind of like, oh, like it's
A
a bright
breeze. No, it's
light
like
breeze.
a
It's like
stiff.
feels like you're behind an airplane. Like
And the hills are no joke on the coast either.
yeah, it was a combination of the hills and the headwinds. It's where it was like anyway, so by the time I got to Appalachia, I was like, I will stay on the easiest, flattest path can possibly get. And it was really pretty and you're spoiled. They got all the resources right there for you, all the rest stops, or not rest stops, like restaurants
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean that bit was amazing. And then I had this massive knot in my stomach the day I got to New York because I knew there were going to be like 20 or 30 friends of mine at this bar. And I got there early and I was going to just do this like sentimental kind of tour of New York and like just relive, some of my favorite places there, go to bike around Central Park and stuff and just take it all in, right? Like this was the last day of this journey and I was just like I had this moment where I was on the ferry going from the Jersey Shore into Manhattan where for some reason all these seats are facing the same way toward the front of the boat and I'm like got on late and I'm like looking facing maybe like 50 or 60 commuters on this boat and I'm looking at them and just had this moment of like looking at these people and feeling so it felt just so crazy to be in this like mundane place after doing this journey. I'm just sitting there like this is just bizarre. Like these 50 or 60 people, everyone's got a story and they're all just there's that word sonder of like every person has a life like as unique and different as your own. And I'm sitting there just looking at these people like, yes, everyone's like going to this commute to whatever job they have, but it's like was kind of just a flashback of like all these moments of the last 5 months of like everyone is just so unique and it was just crazy, man. It was a trip. So anyway, from that point, I got off of this boat and had this sentimental day, and this knot is building my stomach. Did I like invite the right people to this event? Like, how are we gonna pay for all this stuff? Like logistically, like should I have like like gotten just stupid logistical stuff. But I had this big knot, and then the second I got there it was just euphoria, man. It was just an amazing, amazing night that I will hopefully never forget. And just a reminder of like why I did all this stuff to begin with, to share this experience with friends and family and celebrate with them. It was just like I'm so happy I ended in New York because like yeah, I mean, these are my best friends. Like my parents flew up for it. Like, I have like and as you get older, you get all different friendships all over the world and stuff. But like these are my high school buddies. These are definitely my closest friends. And just to be able to share it with a lot of them was just like it was a dream, man. And yeah, I I don't really know what to say. It was the best way to end a unforgettable 5 months of my life. And now I'm, looking forward. I am not really dying to go do another bike trip right now, or any kind of crazy trips.
Fair.
I'm,
That's
yeah, I'm
fair.
really just enjoying domestic life. And I think part of the challenge for what's next is like the challenge of not doing one of these things. Like, like it sounds kind of arrogant, but in a way it's like doing these big trips is, and maybe we talked about this during Rag Ride, but like it's it's oddly now become something that's comfortable for me, where like going and going, if I was gonna like go climb Mount Everest or something, like it sounds ridiculously arrogant to say like that's something that I'd be comfortable doing. But like I now mentally am at a place where I'm kind of like, okay, like this is actually familiar and comfortable to me. What's a bigger challenge, and it is actually like pursuing a life that is more true to like the things that I value. And that is, I think, sometimes at odds with the idea of like going climbing Mount Everest. Like the idea is like to channel this, and the challenge really is to like find joy and be able to settle down and like have a home life that I'm proud of, and to not just necessarily be like, in 2 years I'm taking off again.
Right,
Like
right.
it's like an ongoing um process. And I don't know, maybe hopefully someday I'll get back out there again, but right now I'm just embracing this period of like bring these experiences back into a domestic life that I want to have, you know. So yeah, I mean that's kind of it covers, like, at least
So
yes, New York to, or Iowa to New York, but
so what okay, so you finished riding, you had the big celebration in the city at a place that you know and love. What were the first few days of not riding like? What were you doing and how was your mental state? Because the transition out,
yeah.
I think, was hardest for me.
Yeah, I honestly, like, what can I say? I went to New York. I basically had one day after the trip to just like hang out, do abs I from what I remember, I was honestly like did absolutely nothing. Like I'd been writing every day, like journaling.
Uh-huh.
I stopped writing for like 10 days or something. I was just like, I'm not doing anything. Like I had this grand plan of like when I was done, I was gonna like lock myself in a cabin somewhere and like record everything, like write a book or something, which I still might want to do at some point. But I think I really just decided to be like, you need to just take it easy. Like take it easy on yourself for however long. School helped a lot because it was like I can kind of do nothing for a few days because I know at the end of like in 2 weeks I have to be at school. So I think that helped mentally to not like get the blues or anything. But yeah, I mean, I don't even remember, like I must have just chilled, hung out with my parents, like didn't do much, man. Just enjoyed it. Just was grateful to have a bed to sleep in. For me, I'm super sensitive sleeper, so like yeah, that was amazing.
Do you have
Yeah, I'm
a rough sense of what your breakdown was for sleeping on the trip?
probably 60 to 70% camping,
Wow.
20 to 30% warm showers, or 20 to 20 to 30% warm showers, and everything else was like if I got really miserable, I'd get a hotel.
Right.
So yeah, that was probably like 5%. I don't know. Only just a handful of nights.
That's a
Dude,
lot of camping.
I know, man.
Well, I'll let you go shortly. I had a couple questions that I
Yeah,
wanted to kind of close out with.
for sure, man. No, dude, this is great. This is my first pod about the trip. So
Well, it's been fun to hear you talk about the whole experience, just kind of like where your mind goes as you're talking through things, you
yeah,
know?
no, I've been babbling, I'm sure.
Well, there's so much, and I have a hard time with this too, is like there's so much that you take in and experience on a trip like this, and
Yeah.
to distill it into a couple sentences is impossible. So like naturally, while
Yeah.
you're sharing one thing, your mind's gonna be like,
Yeah, I
oh,
know. I know. It's hard to stay focused.
like you could write 3 Bibles worth of information
Yeah,
probably on your experience.
dude. I totally feel you, man.
Do you, well, speaking of distilling into an obnoxiously small amount of
Yeah.
sentences, do you have a favorite memory or experience from the trip?
Well, everyone said that going to the Sun Road and Glacier was going to be the best part, the best day of the trip. I also didn't even plan on going to Glacier at the beginning, but it was one of those things in being like nimble and agile with the planning. I was just looking at it and like I'd say once a day every week or two, I'd take a rest day and just like maniacally look at the next like week or two or three's route planning. And at one point, I was like, all right, I have more time. I like Glacier just seemed amazing. And everyone's like, yeah, going to the Sun Road. I met probably 5 or 10 bike packers that had done it before. And every one of them was like, this is, it's just as good as it gets, pretty much. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like, I'm going to manage my expectations going in. And it was that good. It's
Really?
just, have you been to Glacier?
No.
Dude, it's special, man. I woke up at 4 a.m. like to go basically ride during sunrise because it's this road that like cuts through the center of the park. It's like the road. And not like Yellowstone where people are like, well, I don't know. I basically it's super busy, so they close it to bikers from 11 to 4. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get up at sunrise at 4. I got up at 4, was on the road by 5, and I went at sunrise. There was like almost no one on the road, and it was this day I had the road completely to myself. Um, it just had this realization, this like overwhelming joy of just like joy to be in nature at this place that is like truly world class. Like it's just such a special part of the world, man. Like there's got to be no more than like I don't know. Well, I guess there's a lot of really pretty places, but this the more you travel, the more you learn. Like nothing's that unique, but oh man, it's wonderful. So that was just like probably the most joyous part. And yeah, I mean that like arriving in New York, what were the other highlights? Like there's just so many, man. It's crazy.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that kind of gets it is like the thing that hits you first, which is
Yeah.
what you just said.
Yeah, I could go on and on for hours
Totally.
about this.
Totally. What was your, I mean, that's a lot of days on the road to figure out food and everything. What was your go-to food or snack that you maybe are tired of now or maybe not?
Dude, I ate like a pig, man. I ate like just this whatever the easiest stuff was to go down. So, you know, I guess I liked getting those bagged salads at the grocery
Yeah.
store. That was helpful because it's just like really it's not messy. You can just I you eat the entire thing. Um had that like it's helped to have that really long ultralight spork that I had because you get like all the way into the back
Oh, yeah.
salad. Yeah, that was really good. I highly recommend those. At the beginning when it was colder, those freeze-dried meals were like a godsend. I loved those. I also had a routine of oatmeal when it was colder out. The problem was as it gets hotter throughout the sun, like there was kind of 3 climates throughout the trip. Early on, it was like cold and rainy. Not it was cold. It wasn't that rainy. Cold and kind of dry, then like mild and dry, and then like scorching hot. And like once it became scorching hot, I left. When I got to Chicago, I left all of my warm weather or my like warm stuff there. I left my jet boil. So, because like the last thing you want to do when it's hot out is boil water, you know?
Yeah.
So I did, yeah. But now, oddly enough, I've like whipsawed back. I'm like trying to be vegan now. at least in my apartment. And I've really liked that. I love like being able to prepare vegetables and like that's been another part that's just like it just gives you so much joy when you get back from this one of these trips. It's like just the ability to have a kitchen and like cooking supplies and like to be able to make even simple stuff is just like oh
Life changing.
it's so great, man. And
Yeah.
I hope this like joy just never goes away. It's so nice.
Well, you'll at least be able to remember the joy, hopefully.
Yeah, man. Of course.
And
But
then last thing, Eric. So going forward, I mean, I know you're in school for 2 years. Do you have any plans for the nonprofit that you've been fundraising for or anything in that world that you're still kind of percolating on? I know you're still working on the fundraising, but
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I've like basically just done from the second that I got to the fish market in New York, I kind of have just like stopped thinking. Like I just need like my brain is very much just like I'm either all in on something or I need to just stop. Like it's very hard for me to just be like casually going about it. So for the fundraiser, like I got to think through it more. Like I'm going back to the point that I made about I had a phase of my life like leading into this bike trip and before it, I think where I was like maybe I had to prove something to myself or something. It was like I gotta like do the biggest, baddest thing, like do an Iron Man, do like these big Herculean efforts. And I don't know, now I just feel like I'm at a phase of my life where I'm kind of at peace with like I don't need to I don't need to like if I want to do something, I want to do it for the right reasons and not just because like, oh, it's this big challenge and like I got to do this big challenge, you know. It's like it's okay to just like be like calm down a little, you know.
yeah,
So I
totally.
guess yeah, with regards to the fundraiser, we'll see. Like I haven't decided one way or the other if I'm gonna like keep kind of pounding the pavement for it. I know it's obviously an amazing cause. It's really just selfishly, like, you know, I've got other things going on and we'll see. I think I have to decide at some point if I'll continue. And if I do, like, the good thing about these trips is like it really gives you the confidence to know like it's doable, man. And you're a great example too. Like, you've got to lean on for that.
Well, you're very kind. Well,
Dude,
we're
you
yeah,
are too,
been
man.
working on it for a while. Um, So, okay, so kind of TBD, where can people find updates on where you're at and also see pictures from your trip?
Well, right now it's nowhere. Like I deleted my
You
Instagram.
did?
Yeah, I deleted my Instagram and I'm very happy that I did that.
Oh,
Um,
tell me more.
yeah, I don't know. I was like, it just, I got exhausted by it, man. It's just like every time I go on the algorithm is not good. Like built, it's built to show you unhealthy, toxic thing. At least for me, I felt I cannot use this in a healthy way. I need to cut it off. So I did, but
So
it's
you
fun.
deleted the app or you deleted your account
I
altogether?
deleted the account and I have all these pictures just like sitting on my computer now. But yeah, I mean, I guess as far as like if anyone would want to get in touch with me, like shoot me an email. My email is eled34 at Gmail. Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty low key on the internet. So now that I don't have Instagram.
So
But
you've been
check out
happy
that
with that
link.
decision.
Sorry.
What'd you say?
Sorry, did you ask if I was happy with the decision?
Yeah.
No, I was. I am. It's been amazing. I'm so happy. I wish I had honestly done it earlier, but I also don't like think that anyone that like it's just it was right for me. But But yeah, other than that, I mean, also like that link, I have the link tree that has like information about the trip and those
Oh,
updates.
right, right.
So yeah, I mean, that's a good way if anyone's interested in reading some existential meanderings
Sweet.
trip. But yeah, man.
Well, thanks for sharing some of your story, Eric.
Dude, thanks for listening to me go on and on about it.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for listening to that conversation with Eric, my new friend, who I met 3 months ago in central Iowa. Like I said in the beginning, and like he mentioned, Eric is fundraising for Achilles International, and he could really use some support. So please consider making a contribution. I will leave a link in the podcast notes so you can go make a contribution. Any amount makes a difference. It's a really great cause. And I'm just so glad to know Eric and to have had this time with him. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing about his journey, how he got where he is, and some of his takeaways that he's had in his life since growing up in Connecticut. And I don't actually know if we talked about it, but we grew up very close to each other in southwestern Connecticut. I never knew him. I also never knew Quinn, and he grew up in the same town as Eric. That's how they know each other. But the world connects you to other people in mysterious ways. It's just fantastic. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the Eyes Up Hump Day Treats newsletter so you don't miss any updates. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.